Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how are my snipers doing today? I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Listen, today we are talking about the one, the only beautiful Turbo Toad token. Now, in this video, we are going to discuss the technical analysis on the short term and, of course, on the longer term picture as well. We will also be going over the basics, ladies and gentlemen, and also we will have some type of price prediction. Pretty much, me saying, do I still think something like Turbo can hit 5 billion market cap, 10 billion market cap, 15 billion market cap? Okay, so we will go over those. Now, first thing I do notice is I'm pretty sure this was at 91% before, and now it's at 90-10. Does it really matter? No. I mean, it doesn't really matter in the end. And then, I mean, this is just recency bias, anyways, right? Oh, it's bearish, right? Wow. It's been selling off for weeks, and now you say it's bearish. I mean, like, congrats. For me, it's still bullish in the long term. I know this has been very, very dreadful for some of you. And I know, you know, you just want your money. Like, let's be real, right? Like, if anyone can get, like, for example, a 10, 20, 30, 50x in a month, they would all do that, right? They don't want to wait months and years for it. And I understand some of us have been in Turbo for a very, very long time. So, it could get frustrating after a certain point. Mental could deteriorate. But, anyways, that's why I am here to be helping people out. Anyways, we can see, ladies and gentlemen, we rank 164 in the world out of 9,513 active cryptos, 280 million market cap, roughly 30 million volume. And we can see that if we go to the holders, we actually have dropped in holders for the last few days. Nothing crazy. I mean, we're averaging like what, a loss of like 10, 15 holders. Nothing crazy. We've seen before where the holders do go down and then they just rise up. So this is just a little cycle in its own way. Like every time there's a little drop in holders, we just get way more the week after and etc. So nothing really, really too concerning. Maybe some people do have some recency bias because we can see that if we just look at the last couple of weeks, right? We had this strong week pretty much in mid-July. Technically, the weekly candle was mediocre because most of it was a rejection. And in the next couple of weeks, generally speaking, we have sold off. So maybe some people are just mentally, they can't do it anymore. They're just taking out their money. Maybe they just think something else is better. And, if that's what they want to believe, then they can believe that. Look, ladies and gentlemen, all right, in the last couple of days, this candle really did wreck us. This 14th candle, it was pretty much when Bitcoin absolutely tanked. We were just at roughly 123, 124K, and then the next day we just tanked thousands of dollars, breaking structure. We can see that the way this candle closed, we closed at 0.0043, and the other previous close was at 0.0046. So we clearly broke structure. We had very, very, weak pullback, like what, pullbacks from Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Yes, I know, usually very low momentum anyways, but still very weak nonetheless. And then you can see the next 2 days we sold off. Now, I do think, based off this, we are still going to be going lower. There's zero signs and zero confirmations that we will be going up, but do not get discouraged, right? Do not get discouraged. I do believe, there is going to be some type of bounce back sooner than later. And the reason why I say this is because I expect Bitcoin to at least sweep this 112K area. We could possibly come back down to here. I really doubt Bitcoin is just going to be moving like this very, very aggressively. It would be very unorthodox, and it would actually signal some of the end times with Bitcoin if that happened. But I'm not going to, right? I'm not going to. I just think it's going to ping pong. So I do kind of expect Bitcoin to come down, probably at least to, the 112,000 area, maybe even down to, mid 110s, and then see some type of resurgence, make our way back up, probably up to 120K, and then we'll see how everything reacts, right? Some of this is just speculation, of course, but this kind of happened when Bitcoin came to the top, right? Bitcoin came to July's top. Boom, we can see it just went over by a little bit and absolutely sold off. So I would not be surprised if we just sweep this by, a couple $100, maybe 1,000, 2,000 bucks, and then we start reversing. Now that we got that out the way, let's go back to Turbo, right? The reason why I mention that, ladies and gentlemen, is because we could potentially see, a little bit more of a dip before we see some type of pullbacks happening. Now, when we do get these pullbacks, what we're going to be looking for is to make sure that we actually do start closing above these highs. Okay, because even if we do something literally exactly like this, and even if we spike up, if we close below, pretty much 0.00498, it's still going to technically indicate lower highs. We can see in terms of the daily, we have a high over here, double top, lower and lower, right? Multiple lower highs. So, and of course, that means lower low, lower low, lower low, and etc. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, don't get too excited, too hyped just yet. Like I said, things are still looking good and solid in terms of the weekly, right? We have this lower here, then we have another one. We did say technically we could go as low as even like 0.0032, right? We close somewhere here. That's still technically good enough. Even if we dip below temporarily, what's going to matter is where we close. In terms of the monthly, ladies and gentlemen, now I'm going to show you something. I'm going to show you gold, so make sure to stick around. But we can see now, although the highs have been kind of been the same in terms of closing, we are still technically having more and more momentum and more buying pressure, right? We're failing to stay higher, but the buying pressure is still looking good. And if August, like I said, close anywhere like this or even technically lower, September should really be a good pump. Like it really, really should, because we are going to get squished. We're going to get squished from the tops and we're going to get squished from the bottoms, right? There's going to be almost no space, right? If we look at this on the daily, I mean, this is all the move and like space would be able to have in September before they would make a decision in October. So I really think that as long as we hold decently for August, which is still practically going to be another 11 days or so, then we should be seeing some type of pump in September. Something very, very similar to kind of what happened over here, right? September was kind of going sideways, and then mid to late September, we started to see some kind of life. I know it's, discouraging people, but, you got to remember there's more money this cycle and everything is just going to play out slightly longer, but you still will make your bread. You still make your money. When we go to something like gold, gold's had a similar scenario. Obviously, it was on a wider scale because this was happening for like 6 7 years, but it had the same thing where it pretty much had these equal tops for a while, but the bottoms kept consistently going up higher and higher till eventually they burst it out. Now, of course, gold is a little bit different. Of course, it's took many years to come. I don't expect turbo to be going sideways for years and years and years. I think by then we'd all lose our minds, of course, but you can see it's like the same scenario where technically it's like, oh, it dropped, but it's like it technically could have still been higher than this certain point, and then it was, and then it just kind of looks this way. So do not get discouraged. Do not get discouraged. Now, where do I think turbo is still going to go this altcoin season? I still think at the minimum on the low end, I really do believe you should be looking at a 15x. Now, that would be roughly 4 cents, 6 cents, 6 cents, but that's like at the very low end. I would be really surprised if we fail to go higher than that, because that would be what, 2.8 billion, and then practically another, divide that 1.4, so we have 3.8, like 4.2 billion in the peak of crypto. That's not that insane. That is not that insane. So I really do still think from here we should be looking at a 15x, right? Even if we take something like the Fibonacci tool, where I would expect at least to go to the 2.2 or the 3.6 area, take it from here to the bottom, boom, right? Obviously, Fibonacci tool is not a tool of, it's not always going to tell us the exact price, but even if we did get a decent amount, it goes something like this, it's not going to be 100% accurate, but boom, this is a little bit over 10x profit, right? If we go to the 4.236 area, that's like 13 14x profit. I am technically slightly above it, so like, yeah, I expect this type of move. It sounds crazy, right? You might be thinking, well, that's so high, but you got to remember, someone at one point down here said the same thing, right? They said the exact same thing. Maybe they had the charts maybe like this, right? And they're like, yeah, guys, we're probably gonna reach this area, and then look, it surpassed the 4.236 area. It smashed new levels. So, you know, I know some of you guys, it might be hard to believe, but you got to remember, I still believe there's going to be a lot of money this cycle. I would be really, really surprised if this was a dud of a altcoin season and a dud of a bull run. But yeah, that is ultimately, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys did enjoy it, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Goodbye.